We'll see how it goes. So my name is Dhalia Bumbaca, for those who don't know me. I work with WellBuilt Cities, which is the nonprofit partner on Homegrown Hillsborough. And so we've been tasked with maintaining Homegrown Hillsborough as a backbone organization that really serves community organizations and makes sure that, as operators of our own programs, we really understand what orgs need, what leaders of those orgs need, and then most importantly, what the community members that our organization serve need. And so that's kind of WellBuilt City's role within Homegrown Hillsborough. And so my title there is Director of Development and Programming. One of our programs is called WellFed Community. And WellFed Community is a task with building healthier communities through food education and sustainable practices. And so that's our way of saying that we really want to kind of move this needle from food insecurity to a place of food security. And the way that we think that that can be done is through education around food. And so literacy, nutrition literacy, cooking literacy. I think we often forget that you can know all the great things to know about food, but if you don't know how to prepare them, then you're not really going to be able to consume them. And so those are just some of the activities that WellFed does. This activity specifically is the one that we developed within the community to be able to talk more intentionally about our food. And so it's kind of hard to explain the nuances of the food system and the nuances of food sovereignty. Who here knows what food sovereignty is? Right? Not everybody. And even if we do, we don't fully understand it. And so this activity is kind of a primer for those kinds of conversations. And that's what we're going to do today. And then we'll move into a fireside chat with two stewards of community nutrition, Chris Adwell and Dee Morales, and I'll introduce them even more intentionally in a little bit here. Dee, you want to join one of the tables? And that way, since you have a smaller space, we can have a really good conversation. So what you have in front of you here are two baskets of food. And so, do you guys notice anything about these different baskets? What's that? One's perishable and one's non-perishable, yeah? Fresh food, yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Raw food and prepared food.
Right, raw food, whole foods, and then prepared foods. And so between these two baskets, we kind of want you to think of them as separately, like, look at one basket, look at the other baskets. But in front of you, you have a list of questions. And those questions are underneath your baskets here. And so you can take one and pass it around. But as a table, I'd like for you to work through those questions and it really meant to prompt conversation about what you see in front of you. And I'm gonna just leave you with that because then we'll talk more about it. Can't give it all away. We're gonna have like 10 minutes here because we're in a smaller group. If we're having a really great conversation, I'll give you a little bit longer. But we'll start with 10 minutes and just look at the baskets, answer the questions in front of you, and really discuss them as a group. These are things that you can pose to each other, not so much in your own mind. Don't be shy, yeah. I mean, like I was saying, I didn't know a radish until I moved out of my house.
I guess when we were talking about when we were younger, I'm first generation American and I used to be from Brazil.
Yeah.
So we grew up with produce, it just didn't look like this. So.
Yes.
That's a really good point. Grew up with produce, but it's not these ones in front of us. I probably eat more of the greens of the beans than the actual beans. And I think that's because they sell them back by leaf separately. So you can buy the beet bulb or you can buy the greens. And my family cooked more of the beets, greens, and the bulbs. What was unfamiliar for you?
It was mostly the beet because usually I see this part depicted as like a reddish color and I wasn't used to like this now looking at it, it's like brown. So it's just like, okay, what is it?
Yeah. And so you're probably looking at them peeled, already cooked and peeled is what you're seeing when you think of beets. Yeah.
In a lot of media, so that's usually red when you cook it, peel it, all that stuff. But I wasn't used to seeing it like that.
Yeah, that's totally true. They come in yellow too, if I keep adding to it. What else? What else was unfamiliar to us, maybe? Yeah, Jazz?
I would recognize the squash when I'm a mom. I make it rarely, and also the squash to me was
Yeah.
Like if we ate it, it was that, and now it's like not so.
And there's so many varieties of squashes, right? Zucchinis are squashes. Yeah. And I actually didn't grow up with yellow zucchini. I had never seen a yellow zucchini. I had only had the green ones. So yeah, there's so many types of squashes. Anything else unfamiliar? What about in the non-perishables?
Good questions about the evaporated milk, like what to use for it.
Yeah.
You guys use it for it.
Yeah, evaporated milk. That is not common in every cuisine. Absolutely.
Really? It's porridge?
Yeah. I had never had evaporated milk in my whole life. Yeah.
Oh, maybe, because we did it between evaporated and condensed. I
Yeah.
guess, as
Condensed,
well.
yes.
So, yeah, we put it in our porridge.
Yeah.
And you guys, cream of wheat, I think it's called here. It's kind of like cream of wheat.
Yeah.
So yeah, you pour it in with some butter and some sugar, and yeah, it's a big old vat, and that was gonna feed us for the whole week. So.
You can also make homemade caramel with evaporated milk.
There we go. And Thai tea. That's where I know it now.
I've always thought evaporated milk as like a
Oh,
dessert,
yeah?
like
As
as a
Yeah,
kind
it's
of like
originated.
excess luxury. But Dee was saying that she puts it in her mac and cheese
Oh.
instead of like half and half her milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? What's coquito?
Coquito is a drink, usually we drink it during the holidays, and it's with rum, and it has evaporated milk, condensed milk, egg, sugar, all the
Yeah, like an eggnog.
not so healthy stuff.
Yeah. But it's fun.
Sure. Anything else? Anything else on the table jumped out to you?
We were unsure about the leek. Like,
Okay.
we knew what it was, but we're like, okay, what do you make of the leek?
Potato and leek soup.
That's the only thing everybody
Yeah.
thought of.
Or
Oh,
beef and
really?
chicken is
Oh.
roasted together. Really good.
Yeah, my mom puts leeks in everything. Chicken, beef, it's just like an onion. Like she'll use it like an onion if she doesn't have those. Pastas, it's just literally blended soup, like you said. Anybody else? What else do we use leeks for?
Yeah, stock, vegetable stock. Is
Yeah, vegetable
yeah,
stock
yeah.
for sure.
And gratin, where you just crumble breadcrumbs on the top and roast it
Yeah.
with butter, of course.
Okay, so when you look at the foods on the table, you said that a lot of the foods you see here aren't the same produce that you grew up with. What produce did you grow up with?
It was plantains,
Can you guys hear over there?
papayas,
What did you grow up with?
no.
Yeah, just let us hear that today.
Plantains, papayas, mangoes, just more tropical fruit because my family's from the islands. So, if things were processed, I guess it was like, I don't know if you guys know, what do they call it? Chana? It's like,
Chickpeas?
yeah, chickpeas, the peppered mangoes, let me think what else, ackee, yeah, I love it. I'm hungry now. Yeah, just the things that I don't know what they would be called.
I think
they're
ackee is just
called-
like key. I think
Yeah.
you can't import it.
You
from my
can?
understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff that, there's a ton of stuff that we had, that is not even sold in stores here. Or we were pointing out that they might be sold in stores here, but they taste completely different. Like the papayas here, to me, is nasty. It's not sweet, it's not juicy. I stopped eating it because every time my husband bought it and cut it up for me, I was like, what is this? And, I had
Unless
to,
it's planted like he said.
oh yeah, apparently,
Unless you buy it
yes,
from
buy
him.
it from him. He grows
Yes.
the true sweet papaya that I'm familiar.
Yeah.
I'm even staying away from mango because the last few times I bought it, it's dry. It's not, it's not juicy. Unless I get it from a local farmer's market, it's not worth it.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to share what produce they grew up? Chris will have the stage a little bit later, so. Anybody else want to share any produce they grew up eating? Yeah?
Well, I grew up in New England, so we basically, it was like potatoes and carrots because we would, we get nor'easters, so it's basically a hurricane but with snow. So we would eat a lot of mostly canned goods and sometimes bread, but every time a storm was coming, it was like, go get the tuna and the dehydrated milk and stuff like that off the shelves. Produce, it was just basically in the summertime, tomatoes, green beans, zucchini. zucchini, potatoes, and corn on the cob, I think was pretty much it. Like whatever the kids would eat. We didn't have a lot of money, so my parents weren't trying to experiment with all kinds of fancy vegetables and stuff. So it was like whatever the kids will eat. And iceberg lettuce.
So I was actually asked a question at work the other day between cantaloupe, green melon, and watermelon. Like, what did you eat the most of, or like, what's your favorite? And I said I like all of them, but like, I like cantaloupe. And I don't know if like anyone here can like relate to this or not, but like they thought it was really weird. But they're all like they're all American, and I grew up with like a multicultural background. And so they were like, oh, watermelon's the obvious answer. But like for me, I don't know, I thought cantaloupe was like normal and everybody ate it. So yeah.
I thought of it here, Georgia.
I was just gonna say, I actually grew up in a household where we didn't eat a lot of fresh produce. So I moved to the Northeast and was introduced to like fresh beets and leeks and had never really experienced them before, had no idea what to do with them, anything like that. But we like use the condensed milk, the evaporated milk, those types of things. But I think it's just like my mom wasn't comfortable cooking, and so she didn't cook that much. And when she did, it was the same thing. So lots of yellow squash, but no fresh pears, more like canned pears. So I grew up not thinking I didn't like fruit because I didn't ever have like fresh fruits, things like that.
My background is very similar, where the fruits and vegetables we ate were frozen or canned. We never had a fruit basket of these items. And I guess it is interesting that our baskets are different. I didn't really consider that. So in our basket, the leek was definitely the most unknown to me, but I was sharing with my table that it wasn't really until I joined a CSA in college that beets and kale became part of my diet, because those are pretty safe things to grow for small farms. And so I was getting a lot of beets and kale and had to learn like what to do with them and how to eat them. And beets and kale are probably some of my favorite vegetables, or fruits, yeah, vegetables. But like looking at their table with the squash, to this day, I don't know if I would know how to prepare that. Like I would have to go out to the internet and see, and then yeah, learning about the different types of squashes and the varieties. And I see there's a peach over there. That was pretty common, but never like a fresh peach. Like I watched my nephew just eat fresh peaches, fresh apples, and we were definitely eating them more from, and I didn't like fruit either because I thought it was too sugary sweet, because it comes in that nasty sugar, mushy, yeah, 100%, yeah, peaches, ugh, yeah, but fresh, I'm super down for. And then I don't know if you guys had over there.
They had a more similar basket.
Okay.
Actually, they had a combo of the two.
Yeah, but we were like very much hamburger helper family, and processed, boxed, boiled, yeah. I know that there's a lot of other comments here, but I do want to wrap us up a little bit and get moving to the fireside chat piece of it all. And you know, I think Chris and Dee can be a little bit engaged with the audience as well, as much as you guys feel comfortable. But really this activity is meant to bring out those exact conversations, without the focus being, you need to eat this because it's a whole food, or you need to eat this because it's organic, or you shouldn't eat this because it's a canned food, right? This activity is really one that we welcome you to bring in if you want the resources to your own communities, as a way to start the conversation about food and kind of the different perceptions around it. So then you can really move into some valuable conversations about maybe how how do you cut up that squash? The answer is if you bake it first, it's way softer. And that was something that I learned from working with a seniors group. I did a whole butternut squash recipe, and afterwards they said, okay, but we can't cut it first. And that was like, it dawned on me, I was like, oh, of course. And so they cut it, so then we shifted the recipe to cut it after. And that was the thing, bake it whole, cut it up later, and you'll get the same butternut squash soup.
Now you tell me.
Yeah. And that's true of a lot of like harder vegetables, right? So these are things we learn in community, and we learn by having the conversations and not being afraid to get into those conversations. And so on that note, I'm gonna welcome up Chris and Dee. Christiane Adwell is actually has her PhD in veterinary sciences, and then as well as a master's in sustainability. Chris co-founded WellFed Community alongside myself and Savannah here, and so she's been helping us lead those programs for the past 4 or 5 years now, and has a wealth of other experience in food. And then Dion, do you ever go by that? Dion Morales is the steward of 813 Hood Garden Space that she's founded, how many years ago now, Dee? 4 or 5 years ago as well, in her own backyard, and has continued to manage that space and build in community programming as well. And so these are both practitioners of how we get nutrition into communities, and oftentimes that doesn't necessarily look like from a registered dietitian perspective, or at least not the direct point of contact to the community. But they can speak a little bit more about how they make sure that the things that they're sharing is, evidence-based, and pulls on the very important component of culture. Because at the end of the day, we all grew up with different experiences because we're all from different cultures. Whether it's, the Americana, or from the islands, or different Hispanic countries, Latin communities, everybody has something different to pull from. Even from Texas to Florida, right? Those are different environments. So I'll pass it off, and I have another mic for you guys too.
Okay, so talking about culture, and I just want to tell you that I'm an immigrant here. I've been in the US for 25 years. And this situation here makes me uncomfortable because English is not my native language, and I have to think maybe 3 times before I speak. So bear with me. I'm gonna try to make this as much comfortable for both of us. So before we jump into our conversation here, I'm gonna take a little bit of the ingredients that we have. And because we're talking about culture and feelings and how we feel, I wanted to tell me, I'm gonna tell first my experience. If you have any ingredients there on the table that bring you some memory from a special occasion of a tradition. This one here is bread. I come from Brazil, and different than a lot of people here, we didn't have processed food. So I didn't grow up with processed food. I saw my first can or prepared tomato sauce here. And I couldn't eat it because it was so sweet. So then I went back to my way of doing. But when I moved here, I was so surprised and excited about the diversity of things in the supermarket and how perfect the fruits and vegetables were, how shiny they were. And 3 years later, I developed IBS. Then I went back to my way of eating, and I didn't have any episodes since. So that shows me that a lot of the things that we have, we give to ourselves. Dhalia told also that I have a veterinarian background. I do. I love animals. But my transition to food happened when I went back to Brazil after living here 10 years. And I was working for a Department of Agriculture for directing animal health lab. But they had a project with the first sustainable agriculture in 2010 with the World Bank and United Nations. And because a lot of people didn't speak English back then, they asked me if I could help. So I started helping with this project and became the research coordinator, and I started falling in love with the food. And visiting family farmers, visiting a lot of family farmers that had problems with pesticides. Some communities that were dying cancer, some communities that has some suicidal rates. And then I said to myself, I have to do something about it. I have to change. So I came back. People thought I was crazy to change my career, and here I am. So that being said, that's why I'm very deeply connected to food. I saw what food can do to people to create a disease, and I saw completely opposite as well. I also, and this gave me a lot of experience to work with WellFed, where we respect a lot where people comes from. So Dee, do you have any of this food here that brings you any kind of memory?
No. Like Shamala said, we grew up with different types of food. So in the islands, it was mostly like cassava,
taro root, the dashi bushes. So yeah, we eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, but they look different, and they're prepared a little bit different.
But did it bring like any kind of special memory, nostalgia, or something here? Like, for example, the bread for me is surprising, for my daughter too, without us knowing, it means the same thing. In Brazil, at 5 o'clock, we all get together, no matter where you are. You go to meet at a coffee shop, not a tea like in England, and we have to have a warm bread with butter and coffee just to talk 30 minutes about life and catch up. And then it finished 5:30 or 6, and everybody goes to their own life. So when I see bread, I love it. I can't eat a lot right now, but I just adore this thing. It has much more than a good taste. So does anybody want to share if you have any feelings of good memories about any of the ingredients there?
So it's not on our table, but when someone was talking about the evaporated milk, when I started talking about the porridge that my mom made for us in the morning, I started to get that feeling because I haven't thought about porridge in quite some time, but it was a routine for us to sit at the table, all of us together, have a big, on a cold morning, and have the porridge to warm us before we walked 3 miles to school or whatever it was at that time, and so that brought up a lot of feelings for us because, I would swirl it just to make sure the butter, got in because it would go off to the sides. And so, as I was talking about how to make it, the flutter of feelings came.
Oh, nice.
Anybody else?
Thank you for sharing.
Well, for us, bread was different. It was baked. We ate a lot of baked, it's bread, but it's like fried, or they baked it on like a tower, like a flat, like a tortilla, the little flat tower things. That's how we ate the majority of our bread. It was literally like either fried or like a tortilla. And then, of course, we had roti. So if you've never had a roti, then let me know so we can. Yeah.
So it's like it's not as dense as that.
Yeah. So the bread was just flatter.
Okay. So I have a lot of questions here that they gave me, but it's more an intimate conversation here. I'm trying to just narrow down this. So how does food serve as a cultural identity in different communities here? What do you think? What is the role of the food?
So it's very divided, in my opinion. It's very divided, where there are the people that believe that food is medicine, and there are people that eat just to eat. Like myself, I'm kind of in the middle. So I don't know if anybody else is kind of where I'm at, where I see the value of eating vegan style or plant-based, and I see the value of, it's gotta taste good, otherwise we're not eating it. So being able to, in my space in particular, being able to merge those two together to make it a little bit easier for everyday folk to relate to, okay, so I can eat collard greens, but it doesn't have to be cooked for 5 hours before it's eaten. We can have a collard green roll, or we can have sauteed greens, and it still tastes good, and we're getting more of the nutritional value because it's not cooked to death. So that's kind of how I kind of merge it together, try to make it easier for everyone to digest. Is just bringing life into food, using more of the food as medicine. I'm learning a lot from Dhalia, because believe it or not, at home, even though we eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, it's more of my kid has to eat it, so I've got to hide it in things, unless it's something that he's specifically interested in. And I feel like that's with everyone. Unless you're interested in eating cauliflower, then doggone it, you're not going to try that cauliflower mac and cheese. So
and how you related this to the different cultures in Tampa? Because we have a diversity culture here. Do you see a difference in the way people prepare, the way people want to eat that specifically ingredients of fruits or vegetables? Do you see?
Talked about this.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this because we had a dinner in the garden, and we know everybody's different. So being able to see the way that we all eat rice, everybody knows what rice is, but the different ways that we can cook rice or that we eat rice, I think is interesting. So being able to connect through food in different ways, I think is literally it.
That's what I think is very important, and I'm having a different look when they say festival. Sometimes I want to get rid of festival, but now I'm thinking very different because it's a place that we have the opportunity to showcase where we come from and show. And on these community dinners that we do, that's what we see. People come with pride, and sometimes they come with the same dish, and then we can talk about the differences and how they did, and become such a beautiful encounter, don't you think? Yeah. All right.
Wait, Chris, I got a question for you.
Okay, tell me.
So, you've prepared a lot of different things, and some of them you've repeated a couple of times. What's your favorite thing to make that you share with other people?
Oh, that's tough. I do cook a lot. I was putting together an application, and I saw the picture, said, oh my God, we cook so much. Woo. I love to, that's what I'm saying, it's a culture thing. I love to cook Brazilian food. I do, and I put a lot of love. It goes way and beyond.
Your feijoada.
Is that
People
The
love
beans,
their
yes.
feijoada.
there's the rice you made a few months ago for the dinner. I loved that rice with the olives in it. Oh my God, I went back for seconds and thirds and I took some home.
Yes, that specific dish is a very heavy and hearty dish. It started in Brazil. We call feijoada is beans with a lot of meats. It started a long time ago during slavery, where the owners, the farmers, they would dispose the not noble piece of meat, and the slaves would get that piece of meat and put in the beans, and then the owners, the farmers, realized that beans was better than the beans they're eating, and then became our traditional food. But there's a trick on that. You cannot eat during the week. Otherwise, you can't go back to work. So that's a Saturday you will see in all the restaurants as a dish in the restaurants on Saturday, because then you can go home and take a nap, stuff like that. But I want to cover here too, one of the questions that they were asking us to include is about how we do the education and trying to do our program within the community that we work. Do you have any experience on that, on your programs? And I will tell in our programs. You go first. Okay. So, I learned on a hard way every time that we come up, like we have a social enterprise or a nonprofit organization or a cause, we have these beautiful ideas and plans to do. But we forget one thing. We don't go there and ask, and that's what a beautiful thing you're doing, Monica, is that this engagement here and ask and having and build the solutions are built within all the groups. That is very important. So we're learning along the way. A lot of times I said, oh, we have this beautiful healthy thing I'm gonna put there. Nobody ate it. It's wonderful. Or we have a cooking class. The first day we did a vegetable bowl. And all the people that went there are from, especially from South America. They look at me, they said, is that gonna be the class? I said, no, we can do something different, or we can put this. So we start like changing and evolving every time by trying to listen to them first, understand their tradition, understand their health issues, their habits, and their lifestyle. And then we went further, which means lots more work and labor. I told Dhalia that drives me crazy. I always say, I'm not doing this again, and then I keep doing. Because a 2-hour class becomes a 4-hour class. And it's not more a class anymore. We do all the benefit value of the ingredients, but now we not only get that recipe that is traditional for that group, for that specific country. We come on an agreement of that recipe. What do you want the next recipe to be? So on that recipe, we create a healthier version. We substitute some ingredients, or we create different cooking methods to not be that heavy, or we look at some healthy issues that community have. So what I ended up doing is, and I respect the dietary preferences. So it became not a cooking class anymore. It became this huge project every time. And then we do the recipe itself. I do a low-carb version of that recipe, and I do a vegan version of that recipe in one class. What we notice is, if I come just with a vegan option, nobody would try it, other than the vegan people there are there. When I bring all the options, everybody tried and ended up loving the others. So our impact is being more pronounced during this kind of process. So we are learning a lot this way. And it became, at the end, when you're able to sit on the same table, that everybody's eating whatever they want and respecting their preferences, it becomes a beautiful night. And I forget this is a class. I think it's just another event.
So on that same note, and I'm gonna boost up Chris and Dhalia because of the fact that community dinners at our garden have evolved since working with them in partnership. Our dinners were more so, we pick a theme and I'm in the kitchen. I'm doing all the cooking, and then I bring the stuff to the garden, everybody helps set up, we eat, we go home. Now it's to the point where it's like, okay, so if this is our theme, what's a healthier version of that dish? So it could be less butter, it could be less sugar. So candy yams are no longer candy yams that are covered with marshmallows on the top. It's just the potatoes with the cinnamon, and you've got the, a little bit of butter, and then to make it a little bit more friendly to everyone. Instead of using regular butter, now we're using vegan butter in all of the dishes. So that way it's accessible, especially if there's no meat in it, anybody can eat it. So I feel like now being aware of the different styles of eating has made it easier for us to bring community together and be able to, like you said, respect everybody's way of eating. I would not have gone and eaten the Impossible Burger because it's just, to me, vegans eat a lot of processed stuff. It's a lot of processed stuff, whereas if I wanted a non-meat burger, I'm gonna go grab some black beans, some red beans, a little bit of breadcrumbs, I'll put that together and that's my burger. But no, their Impossible Burger has a lot of soy, has whatever's in it. And I'm like, why are you eating that? You might as well just go eat a cow. So having the mindset of being aware and considering all of these factors and the different ways that people eat and bringing us all together that way. We had a lady at our last dinner, Cindy, at our last dinner. She walked in with this tray of chicken. We already had chicken on the menu. Like, I told her what the menu was. She made her chicken in a different way than the way that Chris had prepared her chicken. Her chicken went away faster than anybody else's, but when we talked about what was in it, we were all like, oh, I wouldn't have thought to put coconut in chicken. You know what I mean? It gave it a nice flavor without adding a lot of additional dense ingredients. Yeah, so it was still nutritional without the density of it. Cilantro rice was another thing that I was like, cilantro rice. Okay, so I'm getting my phone. How do I make this appealing to everyone? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you that cilantro that you guys passed when you came into the garden, that's where that came from. So being able to show them that, okay, it's here, we grow it, it looks like this, and now it's on your plate, it connects them a little bit better to being willing to try it versus any other way. So I feel like bringing community together, which is what I like to do, is bring everyone together and bring it around food, is a lot, an easier way to do it than just me cooking everything at home and saying, here, y'all eat this. I think it's just easier. So I thank you very much.
So she just told me I have 5 minutes, and I really want to cover one thing that it's coming to us lately, is the food-related illnesses in the communities that we work. On our food distributions, we are seeing that 60% of the people there, 70%, depending on where we are, have some type of food-related disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So we are now conscious about what we are making, and every time when we change this little conversation now, because we are big in community engagement, when we change this little sentence, say, hey, this recipe is diabetic friendly, everybody start eating. So that's another thing that we are learning, but we're just knowing this by the immense amount of time that we spend talking, listening, and trying to understand everybody. So in order to implement and have success on our programs, there is a lot of layers that we have to accomplish before. So thank you.
Thank you.